This is Harry Gines, the first black man of reparations in U.S. history. I'm coming to you today to speak on some issues of clarity, trying to make the path of reparations as clear as I possibly can for those future generations to come. It is necessary to use other icons because in giving a presentation like this, I have elders also who I have looked at over the years and recognized that there was maybe some pieces missing. But in connecting all the pieces together, it is an honor for me to bring to you a path, a clear path of reparations from those of the 20th century and the 19th century, and leading up to the 21st century, which Harry Gines versus the United States is a civil case that represents reparations for himself. I could not at the time do a reparation case as a class action. I was very young at the time when the case was filed. So I do want that clear that the procedures, the federal civil procedures are clear that you must be able to state a claim individually. So in doing so, meeting all those standards for the lower courts, as well as the appellate court, as well as the United States Supreme Court, having to meet all those standards as for how a single person could state a claim on reparations. Now, that would open the door for others, and it is to be looked at as a door and a path that can ignite a class action. But originally filed, it had to be because, as I stated, everyone's life is a evolving, constantly growing, constantly learning. But at the time, not trying to repeat myself, but no, I did not have the experience to do a class action, at that time. So in saying all of that, and the focus being a clear path, if I could come straight to the meat of some issues that I would like to give some respect to others who made it possible so that I would be able to add to the path. The path is clear with Harry Gines versus the United States, and I will bring certain illustrations, today in speaking on that. So if I could give some respect to the book. One of the books that really needs to be understood is this book. Look at the names on it. Who represented this book? It's possible to find. I mean, everything has a barcode. And if that barcode may be helpful, some information on the back, how to find one, locate one, for your own purchase. But I want to give a lot of respect to this path. Those who came before me in an attempt to bring reparations. Now, when I say an attempt, Harry Gines still has pending issues. Google has Harry Gines versus the United States under monetary award and things of this nature. It's understood. It's there. Google and all of the networks in the 21st century will document Harry Gines versus the United States monetary award. That is a big difference between those who in the past made an effort, their efforts, and I'm here to give them all the credence and respect that I can, but yes, I am the first man of reparations, and that can be based on your own information as you Google Harry Gines versus the United States monetary award. So that is a difference of how someone could say that they are the first man. It's not so much that I'm saying it, it's documented. So when something is documented and maybe you're not aware of that, then it becomes a quandary. Why you don't know, the things that I'm trying to bring to you. And today we want the whole world to recognize that, Harry Gines versus the United States and those before him and their efforts, that's very important that some credence be given those before him. Now, if I could just open just a little bit of this book, that you might be able to also find why it's important. I mean, for one, let's just try to get to some names here. Make sure that the names and the ISBN number may be clear. We'll make sure that if there's any information that could help you locate this book, and those who published it, as well as those who produced it, wrote it, and set forth many illustrations and pictures. And in particular, I would really like to make sure that, we give some respect to the foreword. In the foreword of the book, that makes it about as authentic as it can be. Miss Rosa Parks is no longer with us, rest in peace. But this is a foreword. She also worked with, the King family. They are the ones who put this book together. So as I venture through this book with you, make sure you can really understand something that's authentic. This is the late, great Rosa Parks and her foreword. So with that, we really want people to recognize that, there are people in our history that made a real strong effort in reparations, but yet they're shunned. We shun our own icons. That is what we do. And because of that, we have to recognize that the movement and segregation, all of these things play a part in establishing how reparations could be understood as a wrong, why people were denied reparations. And that goes back, dating back to Lincoln, and everybody seems to want to just accept the 14th Amendment, without giving Lincoln 13th Amendment with 20 sections, any type of respect to that class of people. As a non-citizen, that is the difference. I mean, look at it this way. Lincoln never made you a citizen. That was not his intent at all. So as the 14th Amendment comes in, why was that? Because it is at odds with the 13th Amendment by Lincoln. He had no intentions of making you a citizen for many reasons, in particular, just the military. Lincoln never wanted you to be tied to a government that enslaved you without having you have some independence to be able to grow and have your own culture. That is what Lincoln wanted. But yet the movement, as time passes, we run into people like this gentleman, who got to a certain point. He got to a certain point in his efforts and realized that no matter how far he would go, it wouldn't matter unless there was some foundation to the people having land. You see, he would have to have some type of a financial base to any of the issues that he raised at the time. Poverty is something that people just tend to accept, but Lincoln had Black people on a course. Okay, but let's just say this again. The difference between Lincoln laws and the laws that came later after Lincoln's death, or will always be at odds when it comes to a concern with Black people. It would have to, because why would you why would you possibly think that you would want to accept being a citizen from those who enslaved you? You see, in thought, if you really just give that one thought there some time, why would you even want that, even at that time? You see, Lincoln knew that a white man could never really treat you in equal with him. He knew this, and he set forth many ways that you could be independent and still be part of a country productively. You see, now as time passes, there would be other icons. You see, these are men in particular who Mr. Carmichael, he admired. He was there, he admired them, you see. So they too, this tag team right here, was something that it's just a shame that they couldn't get past their differences, you see. But given the Elijah Muhammad, his proper deserts as far as his petition, we want to make sure that. And Malcolm also wanted to get to the United Nations to speak on reparations. These things never really happened, So as a boy watching my elders, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X and Mr. Carmichael, so in watching them, yes, I realized that their work was fine. It was nothing wrong with it. It is acceptable. But Harry Guines versus United States was able to put case law, to a petition, whereas the Elijah Muhammad, what I researched, what does a black Muslim want under the 13th Amendment, you see, in looking at that, he took on the 13th Amendment head on, without any case law, from what I've read. I've never seen any actual petition other than what does a black Muslim want, produced by the Final Call. That's all I've ever seen, but it did make a mark that reparations was due. Now, again, Harry Guines versus United States adds case law. So if you understand case law, it becomes the law of the land, like Roe versus Wade. But in particular, that is an example. But in particular, I think that, we should understand that there is a case that would be part of the quandary with Harry Guines versus United States. In other words, it would be a case like this. Okay, if you find this case right here, this is just a little brief synopsis, of it, hopefully that you could read it. But Harry Guines versus United States would be at odds with this case, make no doubt. This is not a case that I would use. It would be a case that I would be opposed to, you see. So, in other words, whoever would be trying to represent an opposition for Harry Guines versus United States, they would be using cases like that. So that's kind of difficult for people to accept Harry Guines versus United States because they favor this case. I mean, that's how people are today. They have accepted their role. Harry Guines has never accepted his role. He understands the differences between a citizen of the United States and a non-citizen of the United States. And under reparations, which is part of the quandary, you could never really give black people reparations because they've accepted a citizenship. I mean, you can't give all people of the country reparations, and that is where the quandary is. You see, but as a non-citizen, the people under Lincoln who were non-citizens, that puts you in a class separate than those who chose to accept being a United States citizen. It's very simple. Lincoln had already set forth a path for the free slave. And those laws of the 13th Amendment with 20 sections was passed by Congress Only later, the 14th comes in and declares all black people U.S. citizens. Yes, under a case law made part to the United States Constitution under the 14th Amendment. Okay, but that is a quandary. You just done away with something that a class of people once was part two. Now you've changed it when you say that they're citizens, but maybe those people never had the opportunity to see what the differences would be. So in holding the right to be a non-citizen, it is easy for the United States government to recognize Lincoln laws, which is separate based on a non-citizenship. Because reparations could never really rightfully be given to everybody, because that's how the government is. It's based on classes. It's based on a class of people where it could be said that everybody must be under the same equality. You know, how do you be equal in every aspect unless you are a non-citizen? Those rights would be different than those who would be a full citizen. Okay, if you're a non-citizen, in other words, you could never be drafted into the military. But as a citizen who votes, yes, you are a U.S. citizen. Now, you know, that's the quandary. Those who chose to stay as a non-citizen have been stripped of their rights. It's a very simple quandary to understand, and why it can be reparation granted to those non-citizen U.S. blacks. They only need to declare their non-citizenship. That puts them in that class. As long as they keep having the right to be a citizen, I'm not trying to take it away from anybody. You know, you have a right to be a U.S. citizen, but that should not be where those who chose otherwise to be a non-citizen should have that right too. And in particular, that is what the Elijah Muhammad done. You see, again, he declared himself as a non-citizen to the United States, because we're talking about a totally different generation too. I mean, the birth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I mean, his elder would have been very close to Lincoln. Okay, so he could have got some information, you know, that it would have been born in him to know, wait a minute, that's not what Lincoln wrote. And he held on to that he knew he was not a U.S. citizen, not eligible for any type of military service. So he stood on that and went to jail. You know, they incarcerated him for that, for his stand. So again, in looking at the book that I just showed you, you know, this book is a very dear book. This is a very dear book to me because it really shows the path for reparations, and all those who really have tried very hard to get the government to recognize their responsibilities. You know, but Harry Gines has made a difference, because what I'm trying to do, exactly what I'm trying to do, is make it easier so that you're not just spinning your wheels looking and searching for how to go about it. You know, you only have to quote Harry Gines versus United States. You see, that's all you would have to do. The work has been done for you. You know, you can study and continue to study, you know, for as many years as you like. But when it's all said and done, I had already covered that for you. So going in, now that we're into the 21st century, going into 2020, no, that must be understood. You don't have to do all of that. I don't want you to spend your life doing what someone has already dedicated their life for. You know, I make that easy for you. You know, you don't have to do all that researching and going through all of that. You know, that would be something that's a moot point under legal term, because Harry Gines has already came and he's bringing you a presentation that you can definitely understand. Now, let's if I can, just excuse me 1 second, because we are going to take some excerpts from the actual petition. The actual petition of Harry Guys versus the United States. This is the actual petition, volume 1. And I will be going to volume 2 to bring some excerpts and exhibits that were found at the same time. So just to show you just how wrongful you've been a victim, to know that this could not possibly make any sense of your acceptance of a citizenship, of a United States citizenship, based on what Lincoln had for you. Now, hold on. This is very simple. Just look at these dates real quickly. Just get a good picture for that. Okay? I want you to see that clearly, as close as I can get for you. To see those dates there. See those dates? Look at those dates very carefully and understand that all the land, this is where people get in court and then they get stuck. Because you keep talking about land and you keep talking about reparations and this, that, and another, but where is the land of Lincoln? Well, I'm showing you. I'm showing you what's been happening with the land of Lincoln that the black people in the United States who were freed from slavery were to receive. This is what they've been doing. All your land has been coming to other private businesses, government wildlife refuge reservoirs, all of those types of places, where land has been granted other entities other than the people. You see, this is where your land has gone. So don't get in court and just speak of what you're entitled to and don't know, well, why should anybody grant anything? What are we talking about here? But this is what we're talking about. You've been giving land away for centuries after Lincoln's death now. But when it comes to trying to show how you could have done to fixing the situation with blacks, but you never had. I mean, your way of looking at it was to continue the path of the slave master. That's why welfare and public housing, that is directly connected. You see, now a lot of black people or white people may not like that. They may have been in public aid for quite some times, but the government's been giving away land for quite some time. You see, so you've been passed over. It's very simple. Like I said, I make this easy for you. This is the clear path for reparations. So that when you get in court and you're speaking, well, show them completely the entire picture as for why the government has been doing such granting of land to all these other entities, but yet when it comes to its own people who were enslaved that really made this country great, the black people, you see, you've never done anything based off what Lincoln had wanted for the black slave. Nothing. So quite naturally, there will be someone to complain about that. Now black people accept their role. A lot do. But there are a few that know the things that I'm saying. It's undisputed. That is why I am giving a clear path and reaching back, showing my respects to all those who tried in their efforts. But today, going into the year of 19, leading into 2020, no, you cannot continue shunning a people that should have had something to this country that would have stopped the poverty or even the dependency on a descendant of a slave master. You see, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That's how the law and the history of America works. But yet it never worked for the black slave who had everything right under Lincoln. but yet you just wasn't able to do. You refused to do. You know, you won't even discuss Harry Guys versus the United States. You do everything possibly to not allow the people to know that I even exist. I was a myth until social media, made it possible. And I'm going to take advantage of that. You see, I'm going to leave a clear path so that you will never have to go through what I've done, spending their whole entire life, studying history, petitioning the court, and now able to pass it on. That is very important, that I can pass this on to future generations, that they will know how to litigate and how to argue the points for your reparations. I can only provide the path. Whether you choose to get on that path or how would you go about getting on that path, again, all I can do is provide it. You have to be the one to recognize that your citizenship is questionable. Now you must live with that. Which one do you want to be? Which side? You can't get in the middle of it and decide, well, I want to jump back and be a citizen, or I want to be a non-citizen. You must decide that. They never gave you a chance to have an option. That's not something really under the law, no matter how you look at it. Because, there are even procedures that if you were an immigrant, you just don't jump in the United States society. You would have to even take a test of some sort. That's never really happened, with black people. They were just declared, you see. Well, again, we have to be able to say, in the 21st century, is that something that I really want to accept? Because if the United States government ever started a draft, okay, you wouldn't be able to reach back like Muhammad Ali did, who under his religious beliefs was able to show that it was unconstitutional based on his religious belief. That's what Muhammad Ali was able to show. Now, if you haven't been part of that faith, an Islamic faith, don't start when you get that draft notice. That would be kind of late. You have no history, no doctrine. Now all of a sudden you want to proclaim a certain religious belief. No one knows you like that. And that's not even right. You see, you could have handled that much differently. You see, Muhammad Ali was already a part of the Nation of Islam. You see, he was already a part of that before he got his draft notice. You see, so don't try, to pull stunts, that's not proper. You have a choice within your own means. Are you a U.S. citizen or non-citizen? Which one are you? And like I said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was able to take a stand, you see, and it was a costly stand for him because he was incarcerated behind it, you see. So that was wrong, you see, and his family really should be deserving. That was a wrongful incarceration based on anything that Lincoln provided. The man was clearly letting it be known how he wanted to be part of the United States, and it wasn't trying to be a citizen, you see. So that was very strong of him, yes. And later on, like I said, when you get that notice that you're being drafted, who knows when it could happen. You can say, well, we're not in the draft right now. No, you're not in it right now, but again, are you really sure, that voting, all that is connected? You see it all the time. People talking about, voting and, elections. It happens all the time, but technically, again, you may want to recognize by voting, that makes you a United States citizen, with all of the, the full realm of it. That's what you are. You are a U.S. citizen when you vote. Now, that needs to be clear. That's why the path for reparations, all of that needs to be known. You see, now, as I go back to some other illustrations, excuse me one second, because we must make sure that we get as much of this in as possible. My next illustration is something kind of connected to my past video. I hardly ever do that. I hardly ever refer back to other videos that I've made. Now, in saying that, it's important to show the similarities of other ethnic groups. The Palestinians. Yes, the Palestinians and the Islamic nations are having some difficulties with the nation of Israel. Okay, so again, in that video, my past videos, I show a presentation from life. Some of you may remember that, the Life book. Remember that one, and did you remember the illustration that I showed on the superpowers? I'm gonna do just a little bit more. Bring it today. Once again, remember that photo? It's a very famous photo. You've seen it plenty of times. Okay, but again, the superpowers have a way of making mockery, of the society of the superpowers have a way of making mockery, and that happens a lot. Where am I going with that? Well, Black people are made mockery of, through not having reparations. That's where I'm going. It's not a mockery, because nobody wants to even act like they want to understand. I understand this House bills and this, that, and other, but I'm talking about the common man. The common man is the law. The common man needs to step into raising his game of law. He must raise his game very high. Education is plentiful. So you must raise your knowledge, your game, however you want to term it. Get your life on a law field, because without it, that's all you really have is law. But if you're not going to exercise it, and you're just going to accept the mockery of not being in receipt of what Lincoln had for you, and you just want to accept the mockery, then you're like other races, such as the Palestinian and the Islamic nations, who are always being made mockery over. You see, and I just want to show that, because the similarities of the superpowers of the society. So you have law, then you have culture. So those two can be very damaging when people decide to want to make mockery. Now you look at this. Just look at this. I want to show you this. I want you to look at this very closely. Look at that. Now, if that isn't mockery, and even read the bottom of it. Read the bottom, of the article. But take a good look at how mockery of a society, and I'll show you the book. They call it, you like to use the term spam. Well, in 1997, when this book was out, in public, this is another book, that I have, and I came across the mockery. And I just thought it was horrible that a society, knowing the issues of Palestine and Israel, would dare put a comic and an actor inside the photo. Now, where is the intent from that? I call it mockery. That's what I call it. And why is it necessary? Why is it necessary for this presentation to make note of that? Because again, when you don't get what is rightfully yours, there's always someone in the background who knows you are entitled to something, and they laugh at you. They do, because you will never stand for what a real battle of your life is. You're battling for your life. And that's why I said, under the civil procedures, it was necessary for me to file individually. You see, because in doing so, I have set forth the battle to declare that as a non-citizen, the rights for reparation should be entitled to me. You see, now, in doing that, you should understand that the mockery that a person would go through won't even give an article from the journalists or the mainstream media. No, it's all redacted. So because it's redacted, the government itself will keep you from Harry Gines versus the United States. And it also has a way of using other icons so that if you look at their life, you won't look at their good attributes. You will just focus on their bad attributes. You see, and I can't fix how things turned out between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the man known as Malcolm X. I can't fix that. But it's just a shame how so much mockery can come from everything. There's always someone making mockery, making sure that to shun Malcolm X and the Elijah Muhammad always keeps the rival going. You see, always keeps that on the forefront. Because by shunning the Elijah Muhammad, but yet accepting Malcolm X, that just doesn't add up either. No, that won't add up because you have shunned something that was really the core. And everybody knows that. You see, so irregardless of how you look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, keep in mind the things that happened in the 20th century, if really looked at today in the 21st century, I mean, that's common. The things that happened back then. Now, you might say it's still inappropriate. I understand that. But it's very common. You see, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, the list is long. Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis. There are plenty of people who have done something in their life, but to cut them off from all of their good attributes, I say that you do a great injustice to yourself. You see, not to your culture, black culture. No, you can shun, but you do that in doing so individually, because individually that is what the Elijah Muhammad tried to uplift. You see, so if his good attributes must be considered, you see, whether it's on paper, whether it's his daily walk, how he tried to be an inspiration to people, you have to make sure that the good attributes, you don't shun that, because you would miss out. Like I said, those before me, I never really passed any judgment on anything. I was more of a sponge, just trying to, learn, to be a better person. That was important, to be a better person. So in saying all of that, the mockery that you get when you mention reparations, that's a real foul, a very foul way of being. That there's case law out here. Many cases. That, like I said, Harry Gines is not the first person to ever file a reparation case. I give all of you deep respect for trying in your efforts. But there can only be one. And I am the first man of reparations. There can only be one. And that happened. Maybe many might have thought that their education would be something that, would make it happen for them. But even Booker T. Washington said, that education is only one way to judge a black man's worth. You just can't say that those who are lesser in education would be lesser in value. Not actually. No. A man could work with his hands, and if he was given the opportunity to have land in the time of Lincoln, when cotton was king, then none of the connections that you have between the descendant of the slave master and the descendant of the slave, that connection between, or that bond, however you want to term it, wouldn't really exist like that. You see, there is a great dependency of of a U.S. black man. Yes, it's a great dependency, on the descendant of his slave master. You see, and that can be kind of like, as a black man, that can be kind of shaky at times, because no one can feel that. We can share it amongst ourselves, and then we can watch how they treat their own kind, and then you can always recognize that there's always something missing, that I'm not quite, part of the team, but yet only when it's needed, are you part of the team, So you may get these type of inferiorities, in the workplace, just in the communities itself as you walk. I also do presentations of the invisible man. There's no invisible man used today with this presentation, but yet, again, you can put Ralph Ellison on that path, because again, how are you inspired from your elders? You see, so he is part of a path. I brought him with me, Ralph Ellison, when I really need him. But I don't need the invisible man, to bring truth to the world. Not necessarily. It makes for a good presentation that I can enjoy as well. But no, this is not fun and games here. We are very serious about reparations for black people. Okay? And that is what this is about, the clear path. The clear path for reparations, so that when you're looking and you're searching for something that is righteous, or how to find a solution, and then we're not necessarily even talking about segregation. It doesn't have to even be like that, but make sure that the land that you receive comes with clauses, so that there's a business side of it. When land is given to you or granted to you, make sure that the taxes and everything is understood. Don't go accepting something just to flip it. No, that's not part of the rule. It was born into this family and the land was granted to that family. That's how it's going to be. It's no, how you put it, where you doing business with banks and all like that, putting your land up and up. No, the government give a black man reparations the way he rightfully should. Make sure all the clauses are there and tax-free. Cover all your bases, because if you're not careful, the land that could be given to you will be flipped right back into a white man's hand. And to be very careful with that, you see. So as it's granted, I'm making the path as clear as I can. This is not a bargaining chip, something for you to use outside of what it was normally designed for. No, we're not going to have that. We're going to use whatever the government decides to grant, and we're going to use it wisely. Make sure of that for future use, that next generation would have future use. You see, that's very important. When you look at the black community today, some generation must have got left back in the 20th century, because, everywhere you look, looking for a black business that once was, I don't even recognize, home anymore. It doesn't even look like anything like I did when I was a boy. So how can anything say it's been better if I can tell you in 1960, the community looks nothing, the improvements, everything's supposed to have an improvement to it. But yet, if you're looking at the black community dating back from 1960 when I was a boy, it don't look like that. It don't look nothing like it did. So that could be something that needs to be understood. Why you're in the condition that you're in. You see, because like I've said, had land been granted, you would not be in the poverty condition that you're in today. you see, dating back from Lincoln. You would have something to pass on to the next generation. You see, but that was all script from you. You've been really a victim. I've heard someone speak of them being ignorant. You're not ignorant. No, I'm not here to insult you in any way. But part of the education, if you start inquiring about Lincoln from a education standpoint, not from necessarily even the government. The government will provide you with the things that you need. I'm speaking from an education standpoint. See, the education system really did a number on black people because they have shunned that part of Lincoln's and Congress, 20 sections of the 13th Amendment. That is not a given. That's not something that you can just go to school and expect to come out with. No, you won't come out with that. And there's been many years of education for blacks, but it's not a common piece. Why is it that a child can't read what Lincoln wrote? Because if a child was to read that, what Lincoln wrote, and then turn around and read what happened after Lincoln's death, that would be a totally different education. You see, and a child would even, and in its lesser years of wisdom or knowledge or information, would be able to decipher very easily which one it would want. To look at Lincoln laws with 20 sections, that's more, versus after his death only having 2 sections. I mean, the 20 is more than 2. So that alone, a child would even want to be on the right side. Yes. So with that being said, I make this very simple, not trying to complicate it, not trying to make it difficult that it's so hard. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. But people would rather just shun you. You see, always remember that. In this presentation, like all my presentations, I try to get, on the United Nations so that they would also maybe want to assist. But until that happens, I will continue to make as much effort I can that the path is clear. This is Harry Gines, and I hope I brought you a presentation that you can pass on. Thank you so much for listening.